I want to go back to what you said a moment ago about the introduction or the unveiling of the hypersonic weapons system that you said was a signal to the West. What signal exactly? I think many Americans are not even aware that this happened. What message were you sending by showing it to the world?
Well, the message is that you, the United States, and the allies of the United States, who also provide this long-range weapons to the Kiev regime, they must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call strategic defeat of Russia. They fight for keeping their hegemony over the world, on any country, any region, any continent. We fight for our legitimate security interests. So the message which we wanted to sell by testing in real action this hypersonic system is that we will be ready to do anything to defend our legitimate interests.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, December the 6th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the Lavrov Tucker Carlson interview that was posted on X yesterday. I saw the interview this morning. I watched the interview this morning. It's about an hour long. It had, at the time that I watched it, it had 3.7 million views on X. And I thought it was a good interview. Lavrov was very diplomatic. He is, after all, the GOAT of diplomacy. And Tucker asked good questions. So I thought, all in all, it was a very good interview. Tucker talked a lot about Project Ukraine and nuclear escalation between the U.S. and Russia, but he also covered Syria, the Middle East, Gaza. So it was a good interview. What did you guys think? Did you watch the interview with Lavrov? What were your thoughts on the interview? How was Tucker? How was Lavrov? So the last question, or one of the last questions to Lavrov, was on Syria and what's going on in Syria and how does Russia see everything that's happening in Syria, what's going to happen. And Lavrov said that Russia and Iran are going to work with Turkey to try and stabilize the situation in Syria. Lavrov basically said that Russia is going to be depending on Turkey to try and save the government in Syria, to try and save the Assad government, to preserve Syria and stabilize the situation. And he said that Russia, Iran, and Turkey in the next few days are going to be returning to the Astana format and to try and work out a way to de-escalate in Syria and to preserve the government of Syria. So Turkey, it is all about Turkey. Actually, Lavrov, when he was asked by Tucker about Syria and who's behind the terrorist group HTS's advance in Syria, Lavrov said the United States and the UK. That is what Lavrov said. He called Turkey Russia's partner and friend in trying to resolve the crisis that is now taking place in Syria. So that was an interesting statement from Lavrov. And yesterday evening, things took a turn for the worse for Syria, for the Assad government. Over the past couple of days, it looked like things were were relatively stable in Syria. The Syrian army had set up a defense line in Hama. The Russian Air Force was hitting the HTS terrorists in and around Aleppo. And it looked like their advance had slowed down or stalled over the past couple of days. But yesterday evening, we got the news that HTS had captured the city of Hama, where Syria allegedly had set up their defensive lines. And the Syrian army just retreated, just melted away and retreated from Hama. And just like that, the HTS terrorist military captured Hama. And Hama is 200 kilometers from Damascus, and I believe it is 50 kilometers from the very important city of Homs. And this morning, I was reading some news which said that HTS is now 3 kilometers from Homs. So the big cities in Syria, Damascus, Homs, Aleppo, it looks like Homs is going to fall in the next few days because the Syrian army, they're not putting up much of a resistance. And I don't know what's going on. I can't answer the big question as to what is going on with Assad and the Syrian army. Why are they retreating so quickly? Why are they not putting up much of a fight? Why is HTS advancing so quickly? I don't know. I remember 10 years ago when ISIS was trying to regime change Assad. There was a point during the war with ISIS that ISIS was 17 kilometers outside of Damascus. And that's when Russia stepped in and Iran stepped in, and they stepped in with force, and they pushed ISIS back, and they rolled everything back. But ISIS was 17 kilometers away from Damascus and capturing Damascus and getting an Assad regime change. And the only thing that I can think of with regards to what is happening in Syria is either the Syrian army is not what it used to be 10 years ago. Maybe it was just a much better, more motivated army. And maybe now it's, I don't know, it's atrophied. There's corruption. I don't know. They're just not as motivated to resist. That's the one explanation. The other explanation is that we're going to have a rerun of what happened 10 years ago with ISIS, or whenever it was that ISIS was closing in on Damascus. But maybe the plan is to set up the defense line, to set up the real fight in Damascus, or in the area around Damascus. That's where Syria is going to defend, and perhaps with the help of Russia and with Iran, this is where they're going to launch a counter offensive and once again begin to roll back the HTS terrorists. I don't know. Maybe that's the plan. We do have information saying that Hezbollah is sending soldiers to help the Syrian army. We also have information which says that reports which claim that Wagner is going to arrive to Syria to help Assad. Iran is also going to help Assad. We have the Russian Air Force. We have the Syrian Air Force. They're working on HTS as well, on hitting HTS's operations in the Aleppo region. But will it be enough? Will it be in time? Will Hezbollah and Wagner and Iran and the Russian Air Force, will it be enough, and will it be in time to prevent HTS from not capturing Homs, but from threatening Damascus and eventually capturing Damascus and toppling Assad? Will it be enough? I have no idea, man. I have no idea. The neocons, they can sense that they are getting very, very close to finally removing Assad. They're getting very close, the neocons. And CNN, they interviewed the leader of HTS, al-Jolani. CNN interviewed the leader of the terrorist, the internationally recognized, the U.S. recognized terrorist leader of HTS, al-Jolani. And man, this CNN interview was freaking incredible, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable propaganda from CNN. Cleaning up HTS and taking them from a terrorist organization to an organization that is going to govern and rule over Syria. And this al-Jolani guy, all of this must have been scripted. It had to have been scripted. This al-Jolani guy was telling CNN, answering CNN's questions and telling CNN, look, right now Syria is ruled by one person, a dictator, one person, and my goal, he said, my goal is to overthrow Assad, to capture Damascus, overthrow Assad, and to have Syria ruled by institutions, not by one person anymore, but to be ruled by many people and by institutions. And then the CNN reporter asked al-Jolani about human rights and protecting minorities. And al-Jolani said, we're going to protect all the minorities and everyone's going to be protected and free and equal and all of this stuff, right? Diversity is our strength, all of this stuff. I don't know if he actually said in the interview, diversity is our strength, but he said in a statement that he put out yesterday, which I talked about in my video update from yesterday, he said that for HTS, when they rule over Syria, if and when they rule over Syria, then diversity is definitely going to be Syria's strength, right? This interview was incredible propaganda. It had to have been scripted. I don't know. That's the way I saw it. This was very controlled, very scripted. And, you know, it has to be the globalists, the US neocons. They have to be looking at HTS as the group that will finally achieve the regime change in Syria that they've been trying to achieve for the last 15 years. These guys are going to finally get it done. And this al-Jolani guy, this is going to be the guy that's going to govern Syria for us. And that's why they're trying to reinvent the internationally recognized terrorist organization of HTS, to clean them up and reinvent them and introduce them to the collective West public as the good guys. They are now becoming the good guys, the rebels, as they call them, the rebels. I would not be surprised if the website, the U.S. State Department website, or whatever it is that lists all the terrorist organizations, I would not be surprised if HTS is taken off the list, or if they just give HTS a new name and just completely rebrand them as something else. I would not be surprised if that happens in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, we'll see what's going to happen in Syria. The collapse is either going to come quickly, in my opinion. The collapse is either going to come quickly of Assad, or we're in for a long fight. And eventually Wagner and Hezbollah and Russia and Duran, they're going to step in and start pushing back HTS. I don't know. That's how I see it. But the information that is coming out of Syria, especially coming out of the Syrian army, doesn't seem like it's very reliable, because that collapse yesterday, that came out of the blue. At least that's how I saw it. I was not expecting Hama to fall that quickly. So that's the situation in Syria. Let's now turn to Project Ukraine. And the Spanish publication El Mundo. Is it El Mundo? I always get El Mundo confused with El País. Yeah, I believe it's El Mundo, the Spanish publication. They ran an article with the title, All Weapons or None, Kellogg Threatens Putin and Elensky. This is translated from Spanish. And this article is talking about Kellogg's freeze plan for Ukraine and what to expect or what to possibly expect from Trump's Ukraine-Russia envoy. And that's not the interesting part about this article. We've talked about the Kellogg plan and all of this stuff in many videos on this channel and on the Duran. The interesting reporting from El Mundo, at least what I found interesting, is that they claim that the collective West, if they can get this freeze plan accepted by Russia, if they can fool Russia into accepting the Kellogg freeze plan, or if Trump can threaten Russia so that Russia agrees to the freeze plan, then Elensky is going to get a golden exile to take a guess where? To London. That is what El Mundo is reporting. The plan is to get Russia, to fool Russia into agreeing to the Kellogg freeze plan. And Elensky leaves the scene and he gets a golden exile to London. And there's a photo of Elensky shaking hands with Zelensky. And so I imagine what these guys are thinking is that Zelensky is going to take over for Elensky as president of Ukraine in this ceasefire deal. And Elensky's going to be ambassador to London. I don't know, man. I don't know what these guys are thinking. But is that Elensky's golden exile? Is the plan Russia agrees to the freeze, to the Kellogg freeze, Elensky exits to London, and Zelensky takes over for Elensky? They swap positions? Is that the plan going on here? I don't know. But I found it very interesting that El Mundo was talking about an Elensky golden exile. Those were their words, golden exile, a golden ticket to London. I think this is accurate reporting. I would not be surprised if there are a lot of EU, US, NATO officials that are seriously thinking this is going to work, that believe this could be the way forward. Take the Kellogg plan to Russia, threaten Russia, try to convince Russia, try to fool Russia, whatever, into agreeing to the freeze, create your demilitarized zone, move in 100,000 European peacekeepers. And because Zelensky's so unpopular, take Zelensky and move him to London and move Zelensky to Ukraine. Zelensky is popular. Amazing stuff, man. Amazing stuff. And Bloomberg, yesterday they put out a report where Bloomberg, they are saying that NATO is trying to figure out a way to end the conflict in Ukraine without conceding a defeat to Russia. Let me see if I have the Bloomberg article bookmarked. Bloomberg, NATO plans to put Ukraine in the best position for negotiations. Yeah, so NATO officials, according to Bloomberg, they're trying to figure out a way to end the conflict in Ukraine, to continue to give weapons to Ukraine, to continue to push Ukraine, to keep Ukraine fighting against Russia in 2025. But eventually, They want Ukraine to negotiate with Russia and to package this whole thing as some sort of a victory for NATO. Definitely not a defeat at the hands of Russia. And that's what they're trying to figure out right now, according to Bloomberg. And all of this is going to happen in 2025. Amazing, huh? As long as it takes until 2025. As long as it takes until 2025, and we're going to spin this as a NATO victory, not a defeat to Russia, a NATO victory. And they're just trying to figure out, how do we do this? Maybe a golden ticket, a golden exile for Elensky to London. Maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe they're going to pitch that to Putin. Agree to the freeze, and Elensky will be exiled to London. And no NATO, according to the freeze plan from Kellogg, no NATO for Ukraine for 20 years. They're going to wait Putin out, according to the Kellogg freeze plan. Russia's never going to go for it. Lavrov, in his interview with Tucker, said that Russia's never going to go for any of these freeze plan ideas. Never. Actually, Lavrov, in the interview with Tucker, Tucker asked him, what is Russia looking for? Because no one ever asks Russia, right? As Eve Smith says on Naked Capitalism, no one ever asks Russia what they're thinking, what their idea for peace or ceasefire is. They just talk amongst themselves, the collective West leaders. But Tucker, being the good journalist that he is, he actually asked Lavrov, what is your idea for peace or for a ceasefire in the conflict? And Lavrov spelled it out. He said, look, it is Ukraine not in NATO. We start from there. There's no NATO for Ukraine ever. And then we go to an Istanbul plus. He said, we had the Istanbul Agreement in 2022. Lavrov said that Boris Johnson came in and he sabotaged that agreement. But now we have a new reality on the ground, which is 4 new regions: Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Lugansk. And so we have to take the new realities on the ground into consideration. But it's a no NATO, Istanbul plus. That's what Lavrov basically told Tucker. And he said that Russia's open to negotiations and Putin is ready to talk. And let's see what Trump is ready to do. But, listening to Lavrov, it's clear that Russia is going to wait for Trump. Even if the impression that I got from the interview with Lavrov is, even if Biden decides to re-escalate, to start launching attackums into Russia, because we have a pause now after the Orezhnik. It seems like the Biden White House, the neocons, the collective West has backed off. They definitely got freaked out and scared with the Orezhnik. But let's just say in the next week or two, they go cuckoo crazy again. And they say, okay, let's start escalating again with Russia. We had a 1 or 2 week pause. Let's start launching Storm Shadows and Scalps and attackums into pre-2014 Russia again. I definitely get the sense. Actually, I'm very positive that Russia's response to all of that is going to be to escalate within Ukraine, because they want to wait and see what Trump's going to do. So we can't talk about Project Ukraine and NATO's plans, the collective West plans for Project Ukraine, without talking about money. Money. And Politico, they put out an article talking about the G7 $50 billion loan to Ukraine, and how Europe is afraid that the Trump administration, come January 20th, they're going to pull out of the G7 $50 billion loan to Ukraine. EU ready to step in if the U.S. withdraws from G7's $50 billion Ukraine loan. Trump should make his intentions known so the EU can make a contingency plan, says top Polish finance official. Yeah, so the Polish deputy finance minister, according to Politico, he said that Trump, he demands, at least that's how I read it, he demands that Trump let Europe know what he's going to do with the $50 billion loan to Ukraine, because if the U.S. pulls out of the $50 billion loan to Ukraine, or at least it's part of the $50 billion loan, which is around $20 billion, if Trump pulls out, then according to the deputy finance minister of Poland, the EU needs to know this so they can prepare to cover for the U.S.'s 20 billion of the total 50 billion. that is what the Polish deputy finance minister is saying, according to Politico. They got freaked out over Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's statement yesterday, where he said that he's putting a stop to money to Ukraine. At least he's putting a stop to Biden's request for $24 billion to Ukraine. That freaked them out. And now they're very worried about the $50 billion loan to Elensky. They're very worried about the $50 billion loan, which was the G7 loan, and it's going to be covered from the interest from the Russian frozen assets in Brussels at Euroclear. That's how they're going to pay back this 50 billion, this 50 billion loan. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's the excuse that they give for getting this loan out the door and paid back. It's going to be the interest from the Russian frozen assets, the 1.5 billion every year in interest from the Russian frozen assets. That's going to cover the 50 billion loan to Ukraine. Yeah, so they're freaked out because Johnson is saying no more money to Zelensky. He said yesterday, no more money until Trump takes office. So the $24 billion in emergency funding that Biden wanted approved, that's not happening. And they're freaked out about the $50 billion loan now. And so the Polish deputy finance minister, he needs to know, what is Trump thinking? Damn it, Trump, what are you thinking? Are you going to give us the money? Or are you not going to give us the money? Because if you don't give us the money, then the EU's going to cover. Yeah, we're going to cover the 20 billion, right? Yeah. Don't worry about an economic meltdown and recession in Germany, that crisis in France. No problem. We'll cover the 20 billion. We'll cover it if the U.S. doesn't want to fork over 20 billion to the washing machine that is known as Green Goblin Elensky. Yeah. Yeah, France. France is effed, man. The economy in France is screwed. I was reading a New York Times article this morning, and they were talking about the French economy. Man, things are bad for France. Things are really bad for France. Collapse of France's government further burdens its weak economy, already struggling with flat growth and a large debt and deficit. The country faces a new period of instability without a functioning government or budget. So yesterday, Macron, in his evening statement to the French people, he said that he is not stepping down as president of France. He will not resign. He blamed the collapse of his fragile Barnier government. He blamed it on the far right and the far left. He blamed it on Le Pen and Mélenchon. He takes none of the blame. He puts it all on the left and the right, the far right. They're to blame for the collapse of the Barnier government. And Macron said that the Barnier government is going to act as a caretaker. So Barnier is going to be a caretaker government. And Macron said that in the next few days, he is going to give it another go and appoint a new prime minister and an entirely new government and cabinet. And you know what's going to happen? That government is going to collapse in 3 months. And then Macron, he is going to appoint a new government, a new prime minister. And that government's going to collapse in 3 months. And then Macron is going to appoint a new government and a new prime minister. And that government's gonna collapse. And Macron is just going to kick the freaking can down the freaking road. Because Macron did Macron say this? I don't know if Macron said this, but I was reading in his statement yesterday, but I was reading that France, according to the Constitution, that they cannot call an election for 10 months because they already had an election. They have to wait at least 10 months to call another election. So either Macron kicks the can down the road and we're going to get all of these new governments being put together and then collapsing for at least 10 months until we can get to an election, or Macron resigns and then we get to an election. And Macron said he is not going to resign. So it looks like we're going to get a lot of can kicking. That is what's going to happen. But in the meantime, as the New York Times is reporting, the French economy is a complete mess. The New York Times is reporting that France has high inflation, high energy costs. Small and medium-sized businesses are closing down. That the large businesses, because there's no budget in place, the large businesses, they can't properly plan for the 2025 year ahead, because they don't know what the government financial plan is going to be, what the budget is going to be, what the tax rates are going to be, so they can't properly plan. They can't give an outlook going forward. And basically, France is facing a debt crisis greater than Greece's debt crisis in 2009, 10, and 11. And that says a lot, because Greece had a financial freaking meltdown. And the New York Times is saying that France's situation could end up being a whole lot worse. And that's trouble, not only for France, but for the EU and the Eurozone. So the plan is just to kick the can down. That's the plan. There is no plan. The plan is there is no plan. That's the plan. So let's do a couple of more stories. By the way, the New York Times article, when it talks about high energy costs, high inflation and high energy costs, the New York Times article says high energy costs because of the conflict in Ukraine. That's what the New York Times says in its reporting. High energy costs because of the conflict in Ukraine. It doesn't talk about the sanctions against Russia. It doesn't talk about Macron's support of Project Ukraine. It doesn't talk about blowing up Nord Stream. It doesn't talk about any of that. It doesn't say that we have high energy costs and inflation because of the sanctions against Russia. Nope, it doesn't mention any of that. It just says the conflict in Ukraine has caused high energy costs in France, and this is causing problems for many businesses. It doesn't mention the sanctions against Russia. You can't mention that, because if you mention that, well then, the New York Times readers just might start to question the sanctions policy against Russia, and you don't want them asking too many questions, do you? So let's do some more stories, and then we'll get into a clown world. How am I doing on time? I got to wrap this video up. Politico is reporting that the Biden White House is discussing preemptive pardons for more people who they consider to be in Trump's crosshairs. Those are the words that Politico is using. The nomination of Kash Patel, who has vowed to pursue Trump's critics as FBI director, has heightened concerns within the president's inner circle. Basically, the names being listed for a preemptive pardon is Fauci, Liz Cheney, Adam Shifty Schiff, and I'm not sure, did Politico mention Biden's his brother? Jim or James Biden, who was also involved in a lot of the Biden family business, 10% for the big guy stuff. I'm not sure, but those are the names that are being talked about with regards to some sort of a preemptive pardon from Bidenopolis. And that pardon's going to happen a couple of days before January 20th, before the Trump inauguration. So, they're talking about a preemptive pardon. And we have the excellent news, and of course, I say this being biased here, but to me, this is one of Trump's best picks. The excellent news that David Sachs has been appointed as the White House's AR and crypto czar. So we've had David Sachs on a live show. He has been on the Duran, and I think this is a great pick. David Sachs would have been a great pick for Secretary of State, actually. I would have much preferred David Sachs as Secretary of State rather than Marco Rubio, but at least we're going to have David Sachs in the Trump White House, and that's a good thing. Overlooking AI and crypto. And he's very qualified to do that. He's very, very qualified to take on this this job. Bitcoin hit 100,000 yesterday, but I believe today it dipped back down to below $100,000. But yeah, excellent news from the Trump White House. A very good appointment of David Sachs. And let's get to a clown world. And we begin this clown world. Ooh, we have two very good clown worlds, two very, very good clown worlds. We begin with Kuleba. Kalua Kuleba. Kalua Kuleba. It's a Beach Boys song, isn't it? Kokomo. Kalua Kuleba. I don't know the rest of the lyrics. Anyway, Kuleba, the former foreign minister of Ukraine, of the Elensky regime, he found a new job. Yep, he has been appointed as a senior fellow to the Harvard Kennedy School, the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs welcomes Dmytro Kuleba. Yeah. Anyway, that's the first clown world. And the second clown world is Annalena Baerbock math, everybody. Ah, yes, we got some more Annalena Baerbock math. So Lavrov, before the interview with Tucker, let's walk up this way. Lavrov was in Malta representing Russia at the OSCE conference meeting that took place. And all of the OSCE countries, all of the European countries, they were at this event in Malta. And according to the reports, and I'm taking this from Deutsche Welle, the German state, is Deutsche Welle state funded? Yeah, I believe it is. I believe that Deutsche Welle is German state media propaganda. Anyway, Deutsche Welle, they are reporting that German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock called Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's words at the OSCE event that the West helped to fuel the war in Ukraine, and I quote, an unbearable lie. You can deceive yourselves. This is what Baerbock is telling Lavrov. You can deceive yourselves, but you cannot deceive us, the 1.3 billion people in Europe, she told the head of Russian diplomacy at the meeting of the OSCE Foreign Ministers Council in Malta. Wow. The 1.3 billion people in Europe. 1.3 billion people in Europe. Gosh, that sounds like a lot of people in Europe, doesn't it? Sounds like a lot of people in Europe. I don't know, man. I think that Annalena's math is a bit off, huh? 1.3 billion people in Europe. But you know what? The German media, they caught on to this mistake from Annalena. Or maybe it was not a mistake. Maybe it was a mistake in the reporting. At least this is what German media is claiming. They are saying that Annalena was misquoted. And what she actually said is, you can deceive yourself, but you cannot deceive us, the 1.3 billion people in the OSCE states. And actually, Deutsche Welle, they corrected this quote, and they said in a post on Twitter, they said, we apologize for the inaccuracy. That is what Deutsche Welle said as they corrected the quote from Annalena Baerbock. So Annalena Baerbock did not say 1.3 billion people in Europe. What she actually told Lavrov, as she faced off against Lavrov, foreign minister against foreign minister, Annalena said, you cannot deceive us, the 1.3 billion in the OSCE states. She was misquoted by the media. Oh, man. I think they're watching my videos, man, and they probably said, you know what, man, if we report that Annalena said 1.3 billion people in Europe, man, that Alex, he's going to have another clown show segment talking about Annalena math. We need to correct this. She said OSCE countries. 1.3 billion in OSCE countries. That's what she said. Are there 1.3 billion people in the countries that are members of the OSCE? I don't know. Maybe, but do people really talk like that? Does Annalena, is that really what Annalena said? Did she really say 1.3 billion people in OSCE countries? Do you guys actually believe that that's what she said? I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I think she said 1.3 billion people in Europe because that's how people speak. that seems to me to be the most normal way of talking, right? Especially for someone like Annalena Baerbock. I can't imagine her. Yeah, it was an OSCE meeting, but I can't imagine someone saying 1.3 billion people in OSCE countries. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she was misquoted. Anyway, that's the video. I don't think she was. That's the video. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like the jacket that I'm wearing today in this video. Take care.